Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Steven Minsky. Steven is a CEO and founder at LogicManager, which is a powerful risk management software with comprehensive solution that supply organizations with focused and improved risk management processes. Steven, thank you for your time to come in, on our interview today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today with you on Privacy Day.
Oh, exactly. Now it's Privacy Day, so we have a very interesting podcast and interview. And Stephen, you also have been a prolific blogger and also contributed to a lot of blogs, including in our community. And I wanted always to connect with you, but now is a good time to have a kind of comprehensive interview with you.
No, it's been a pleasure. I've been blogging on risk management since 2005, so it's been a long time.
Yeah,
so helped a lot of people.
Your hobby in your business, you created a very company that is growing very rapidly. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Steven, could you perhaps tell us a short story about who you are and what you guys at LogicManager have been up to these days?
Excellent. So LogicManager is the first risk management software built by practitioners for practitioners. We focused on a risk-based view for helping all governance areas. Of course, privacy being a topic of today, but everything within IT and IT governance of security, as well as audit, business continuity, compliance, vendor management, the list goes on and on. Taking all of them and putting them on a common view, a common platform with a risk-based point of view. This all rolls up to the world we live in, which is the see-through economy. And that's something that basically since the advent of the mobile phone, the smartphone, there's a recording and pictures of everything that you do. And of course, with other technologies, data is transferred around the world with social media, that the risks have never been higher and are very rapidly changing society. And really, this is what risk management is all about in COVID days. What our role is in helping organizations.
Fantastic. Today we will do a deep dive into data privacy and how regulations like GDPR are changing the game for businesses. Steven, you often speak about see-through economy. Could you perhaps walk us through what does it mean for people and how is it applicable to the businesses?
Sure. So it's easiest to understand that in terms of how things were just say 10 years ago to today. 10 years ago, you could have a press release, and if there was a stumble or a scandal in some way, a company or an organization could put their viewpoint out and dominate the news cycle with their view on whatever happened. Now, with the see-through economy, every consumer can weigh in on their opinion of what happened. And now the company press release is only one of millions of voices on the internet, and it gets drowned out nearly completely. The truth comes out within days instead of within years, and therefore the accountability for anything that comes out. And there's been really three big findings in the last 15 years that we've proven. Number one, all scandals are known by the organization which they occur at least 4 to 6 months before the scandal gets known externally. That has been 100% of the cases. Therefore, since it's known, and it's usually known by several people within the organization, that makes it preventable. And in 2010, they actually changed the legislation for fraud and negligence to have the same penalty. So if it was known by your employees and you didn't do something about it, that's negligence. If you knew about it and you purposefully didn't do anything about it, it's fraud, but the penalty is the same. And so leaders of organizations need to say, do they want to be in the news for negligence or fraud? And the answer is neither. Since it's 100% preventable, since it's 100% knowable, it's 100% preventable. And that's really what the see-through economy is all about, as the world has demanded that these scandals come to an end. And from a privacy standpoint, just think about the massive changes we've had even in the last several months. New legislation that companies have to show who they are. You can't have blind companies anymore. That the GDPR has moved to its next level just November of this last year, taking the personal privacy of GDPR and extending it to the data that organizations have. And these are some massive privacy changes happening. Like I said, that's just within the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Let's dive into the data privacy topic. What are the biggest challenges organizations are facing when it comes to data privacy, and how companies need to proactively address any issues or gaps in their compliance related to this issue?
So you can think about it a little bit like the problems of, say, data security 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, if you have security too tight, then you can't function. And if you have your security too loose, then you have breaches and things of that nature. So privacy, if you will, is that kind of challenge. If you have, unless you have a flexible way to manage privacy, if you go too far without this risk-based approach, you can actually hurt your consumers and your audience and stakeholders that you have a mission to serve. And of course, going the other direction and being too loose would also hurt those stakeholders. So I think the key of privacy is how do you put in the flexible systems that allow you to do business and serve your constituency, but still be respectful and give them control of their information, which they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are currently in the midst of a major crisis. I think the most important disruptive period in our society in the peacetime history, and the pandemic having serious implications for businesses across the globe, and as they adapt to the new normal of operation. So can you perhaps elaborate more on this topic, because there are many security and privacy issues involved in the work from home situation? What tips do you have for risk managers to help them to stay the course during this pandemic crisis?
Sure. So I think the first thing to realize is that in terms of crisis, bad actors will take advantage of that void. So whether it be privacy or security or vendor management, they're looking for the easiest way in to your organization's data. And that, on the flip side, so needing to divide this and say, you can't just let privacy be a back burner topic just because there's a pandemic going on. People expect organizations to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. They expect privacy is an inalienable right, and you should be able to do your mission and protect their privacy at the same time. It can't be both. I think that's a second, and it's not one or the other, it's both. And I think that's an important lesson for risk managers. A third one, I think, is carving privacy out on one hand to be able to focus on it, but integrating it in terms of all that you do. Marketing is involved, which is not a traditional risk management stakeholder, but they're very much involved from a privacy standpoint. And so are all the other areas of your organization. So understanding that GDPR and privacy is not a single siloed problem. This is something that has to happen on the enterprise level and has to happen at the activity level. Again, the message to risk managers, it's not one or the other, enterprise or the activity level, it's both. So I think those are the probably top 3 strategic takeaways. And they sound maybe very simple, but if you remember any other massive change like financial reporting or compliance or technology in practice, this is a very, just rolling out these 3 alone is significant a challenge.
All right. Yeah, it makes me sometimes very nervous when people or brands know about me or my company. So, for example, they know the appliances I use in my house, the software that I install, the websites that I'm visiting, they can read even emails that I am sending. It's like there is no privacy anymore. So where do you think the data privacy as a whole is heading? What are the trends in this area, like that data ethics, or what should we expect from you guys in this future?
So I think that you brought up a very important perception versus reality. The perception, so first of all, again, I think the starting point is that privacy is an inalienable right. This is not optional, and companies need, and all organizations, governmental, non-governmental, private, public, all organizations need to protect their the rights of their individuals that they serve and the information that they collect on them. I think when you start from this position that it's from a positive standpoint, the glass is half full, and you say, like when you visit a doctor, you need help, and you give your doctor private information. That's okay. You're just expecting the doctor to do the right thing with it. If that information is going to be used for medical research, you consent to have medical research done and have this data available for medical research, and is kept privacy and is anonymized. So it's not about preventing things, it's about enabling things in a responsible way. And I think it's really that kind of a mind shift. And of course, we have some very bad business models in the marketplace, notably Facebook and things of this nature, that they, instead of making the, if you will, business model is around the customer, they are giving the services free to the customer and then selling the data off on the other side. This is really what has been, I think, I think the worst precedent that has been established, because it needs to be let the people pay for the services and then let them opt in to their data being sold. And there will be lots of those, if it's done in a responsible manner, that would be happy to have their data shared. You share certain information willingly to responsible parties all the time, as long as it's dealt with, as long as the game rules are established and expectations are set, and then those game rules are followed. I think pretty much everybody is okay. Most people are okay with sharing, as long as they're asked and they're involved and that they're respected. And I think at a very high level, these are the principles, but then you need to bring it down to the operating level and saying, how can I forget somebody in my organization? How do I identify where that data is? How do I identify what game rules I'm playing, what sport, if you will, I'm playing? And how do I respect those rules? How do I have internal controls on those rules? How do I have auditing on those rules internally, and so forth and so on? And because good people sometimes make mistakes, how do you make a response? And what should the response be? Much like you have fire drills and you have, you know, all kinds of fire protection. You can't eliminate fire, but you can respect fire and you can plan for fire so that it heats your house, cooks your food, but doesn't burn it down. And I think privacy is very similarly. You can have a safe relationship with people, with individual and organizational data, and have it not burn your house down, and have it do great things for your organization and for your constituencies.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And I would like to hear your personal opinion. What is the commonly held belief as it relates to data privacy that you strongly disagree with, just to understand your point of view?
So so I think that Europe is far ahead of the United States in this area, which is where I agree. So my personal view is that Europe has got it right with GDPR, that Europe has put a lot of thought into, and not just GDPR, but the larger sense of privacy. And the world has been following not just the confines of the EU, but also Asia Pacific and the rest of the world, and very slowly the United States as well, with legislation in California and New York that is starting to take notice and follow those protocols. A lot more work to be done, but I think going to the other side of it, the most egregious part is that which I personally feel is unacceptable, is for organizations to feel as though they have a right to your data and that you don't. This is very similarly to the lawlessness on a street, to say that people don't have rights to life and liberty. These are some of the things that we worked through in the last centuries, that people have a right to live, a right to be healthy. They have a right to privacy. And I think this is the core. If you don't have people on the same page with this recognition of this fundamental right, it's very hard to have a conversation on being a good steward of that information. So it really has to start with the tone from the top in the organization, and it needs to go through and permeate all aspects of the organization, and with the appropriate controls and the appropriate processes and procedures. And it's not so difficult to do. So going back to it, it really starts with one thing. Do you recognize the right that people have to, and organizations have, to their data and to their privacy, and then work from there? It is all manageable. The technologies are there, the processes are there. This is not a technology problem. This is a policy problem.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And for someone who is listening to this interview and want to take action, what do you recommend as a starting point? So
I think that there's two ways to look at this, and that's a really excellent question that you've just asked. I always look at it from a risk-based point of view. There's so much one could look at it and say, there's so much to be done. This is so broad. It'll take me 10 years. So I think and that's if all privacy issues, you're going to do them all at once and treat them equally. No activity is ever done that way. So we need to take a risk-based approach and look at you say privacy is important, where are my highest risks? And it starts with a risk assessment to say, where are my greatest and most egregious vulnerabilities from a privacy standpoint? Let's identify them and rank order them and start with number one, for example, and look at it from a risk-reward trade-off. I think in Europe, which is very important, class action lawsuits have never been a precedent in Europe before. They have started. And when you look at the new lawsuits, particularly with Marriott and several others, British Airways and so on, the penalties were much lower than what people had expected. And so now a class where regulation penalties, the population has fallen short, and the government perhaps has fallen short. The private legal community is stepping in, and class action lawsuits are now showing up. And now the injured parties, which are in the hundreds of millions for these kinds of breaches, and data negligence and privacy negligence, they're being rectified in the courts. And so I think this is an enormous new risk for organizations that never knew that there could be a class action lawsuit on privacy. Well, those class action lawsuits on privacy are working themselves through the courts, and this is going to change the dynamic, and I think in a good way, because this is going to, it's difficult to hear what I just said as a good thing, but you have to say change is painful, change is difficult, and this is showing in our risk registers, this issue is coming up to the top, and the population and the organizations are expressing their demand. So if it were not important, there wouldn't be a class action lawsuit. So the fact that there is one is evidence that this is an important issue. So I think that's really when you then go look at your risk of privacy and your liability on privacy, and you start working down your risk list, it will be a much, much more manageable task. And by the way, I just want to throw in there, when you do this risk-based approach, you eliminate 95% of your penalties just by doing what I just talked about, because you're no longer negligent. Remember, being negligent means you say it's overwhelming and you don't do anything, and you have no demonstrated plan on how to address something. Bad things do happen to good people, and that's taken into consideration into the courts and into to these kinds of actions. And if you're putting together a risk assessment and you're showing material steps being taken, and some scandal or bad thing were to happen, your penalties would be, in the 90%, reduced in the 90% range, because you would be eliminating negligence just by putting your plan and starting to put material action and responsibilities around it. So that's probably my number one recommendation to risk managers, that you can't see, although it's easy to fall into a trap, that it's overwhelming. We need to take those action plans to take negligence off the table as soon as possible.
Oh, fantastic. So I think that's all my question. Maybe is there something that I forgot to ask you and you would like to kind of to reply on something?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is also another just piece of advice. I'm a practitioner of risk. I've always taken a helping people kind of view. So what I would say to the risk management community is it takes a village to get this thing done, and we need to take the fear out of it. We need to talk to our stakeholders around the organization. We need to talk to our risk committees. We need to talk to our fellow peers in the executive suite. We need to talk to people throughout the organization. We need to let them know that we invite them to participate in our risk management plans. And in this way, like I said, all scandals, and I mean all, there hasn't been a single one where the scandal wasn't known, the vulnerability wasn't known with certainty 6 months in advance by the organization, typically by the front line of the organization, since they already know. And if you don't know about it as a manager or as a leader in your organization, you're already negligent. So taking that very first step to engage them in the process takes negligence on the table, takes the fear, and actually protects you in the sense, not just legally, but also from your reputation, because your employees are going to say, okay, we understand that this is a problem. We've known about this. I'm so glad my organization is doing something about it. The other way that it is you get afraid, you think that nobody knows, and you try to hide it. And that is just, in this day and age, as we talked about it with the see-through economy, there's no hiding in the see-through economy. So we need to change our mindsets and say, it's already known. So let's take that first step and engage with our employees, engage with our customers, engage with our stakeholders, and let them know we want to do better, we are doing better, here's our plan. That will take the stigma out of it. That will take the fear out of it, and that will put you on your path to health. So that I think is I would love to leave people with that positive thinking instead of a fear thinking. You better hide, they're coming for you, because that's just not a healthy view. We've got a lot going on in the world right now, and privacy can be a contributor. By the way, COVID has a lot of privacy information about it. If we can have privacy as we deal with COVID, why does it have to be either or? We'll be able to help crowdsource, if you will, medical information from the community. That's what the new laws that went through, that were proposed on November 25th in Europe, with the next level of GDPR. Let's just do this medical research in a responsible way. It's necessary, but it doesn't have to be at a sacrifice of privacy. We can solve world problems and have privacy at the same time.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Thank you, Steven, for your very thoughtful interview. And I wish your company very successful growth in coming years, and hope to see you again on our interview show in a few months.
I'm a big fan. Thank you as well. Happy Privacy Day. And it's a great honor to participate, as always, with the global risk community.
Thank you.